the stock market continues in turmoil after President Trump's announcement about tariffs yesterday. We'll talk about the new budget for the state of Ohio, and we'll have some fun talking about sports. Let's go.
It's a Scott Sands Show.
Hey there, how y'all doing? You'll be doing much better if you don't look at your 401k today. I'll tell you that. We'll get into it in a minute. Thank you for finding the podcast. We're on Spotify, of course, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube, Facebook. If you haven't done so already, I would love for you to subscribe, maybe share the podcast with a friend. I'm not making any money from it, but I do appreciate it. It's episode 2555 of the Scott Sands Show, the podcast. We got a lot to cover to try to cover today too. Can I just tell you? I've been unemployed now since the beginning of the year, doing the podcast for fun. I've done many episodes since January. And I'm still not happy with the way the home studio looks. I'm not happy with the lighting. I'm not happy with the mess around me. I'm not happy being on video. I've had plenty of time to clean up and figure things out, but it's not been on my list. I do like doing the podcast, though, in between looking for a real job. This ain't going to pay the bills, and I hope you'll continue to listen to all of my friends over at iHeartRadio and WSPD. Yesterday on the podcast, we talked about the storms coming through, and I hope you and your family were safe. I know a number of tornadoes touched down throughout the Midwest. We talked with Jamie Wietrokowski, the local owner of Four Guys on a Roof, about how much damage these storms could do to your roof, especially older roofs. If you think you might have some damage, call for a free inspection, call for a free estimate if you need a repair done to your roof, or if you hopefully not need a complete roof replacement, or if it's just time for a new roof, you need to get on the calendar for their spring installation dates. 4guysandaroof.com. Jamie's great. He will take care of you. Call Jamie, or Mike is in the office. 4guysandaroof.com. Obviously, tariffs are our top story. I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse. I'm sure you've seen a lot of news coverage. You've seen a lot on social media about it as well. The stock markets are down as we're recording this on Thursday afternoon. NASDAQ is down another 900. The S&P is down over 200. The Dow is down, 1,400. It's painful to watch. All of these sectors are blood red for the most part. There's a little rebound happening now, but many people expected like a 5 to 10% drop in the market after the tariff announcement. If you were following along with me yesterday during the live stream, I was kind of surprised as we were talking about the markets going up as the announcements were beginning. It was kind of a strange little price action. The market jumped about 30 or 40 points, if I remember. I think the markets initially believed that reciprocal tariffs were limited to the 10% baseline tariff, but that quickly changed as Donald Trump began outlining many other tariffs well above 10%, literally to every country, including apparently countries that have zero inhabitants, except for penguins. I think that's a fact. I've seen it shared on social media. I'm pretty sure it's true. And many of the analysts that I trust, and I do think long term, these tariffs could be good for the country if they bring manufacturing back to the States. But as a negotiating tool, as we talked about with Tim Murtaugh the other day, a very powerful tool, which I believe is a negotiating tactic that Donald Trump is trying to leverage. But if these tariffs, the rate on average remains at 29%, inflation is expected to rise to 5 to 5.5%. And this is based on what many analysts believe. UBS also agrees with this estimate as price increases will be at least partially passed on to consumers. What this means is we will be paying more for stuff, at least in the short term. Canada is the only other country that's expected to see inflation rise by 28% or more. So If it's not already clear to you, it should be now. As you look at your 401k, the markets are bracing for a possible recession. Oil prices this morning were down 7% as investors price in a collapse in global demand. And if these tariffs are implemented long term, it's possible that we could see oil prices fall 40%. So there's a lot to cover. And I'm certainly not an economist. I'm not an expert, but I have been following this story closely. And this is what we voted for. I mean, these tariffs shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. Donald Trump talked about tariffs on the campaign trail. He talked about them in 2016 when he was running for office then and during his presidency the first term. And he's been talking about tariffs as a tool to strengthen America since literally the 1990s. So this should not come as a surprise. And again, the long-term goal is to bring manufacturing and jobs back to the U.S. And certainly I hope that the president is successful in that. Most countries hit with at least a 10% tariff, but others kind of stuck out, as I said. Cambodia, 49%, Vietnam, 46%, Thailand, 36%, Taiwan, 32%, India, 26%, South Korea, 25%, Japan, 24%. There, of course, as you might expect, was pushback. What was left of the old guard free trade Republican Party was horrified by the announcements yesterday. Former Vice President Mike Pence, who's been just crucified on social media today, said the Trump tariff tax is the largest peacetime tax in U.S. history. Several farm groups frowned upon the move, knowing that agricultural exports will be targets of retaliation. Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall, that's his real name, said increased tariffs threaten the economic sustainability of farmers. However, as we saw yesterday in the Rose Garden of the White House, the UAW, or at least members, rank and file members of the UAW, are all for this. We did see Stellantis announce that they were going to lay off workers at a couple of overseas foreign plants. I believe one was in Mexico. And of course, the opposition from the Democrat Party has been loud, saying it's not Liberation Day, it's Recession Day. That's House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries. The big reaction, obviously, though, is not political, but how all of this is going to be digested by the stock markets around the world. Futures here, as I mentioned, are down. On Wall Street, the idea of starting a major trade war, not really considered to be a solid economic policy. It's the long-term effect that I think we're all waiting to see and where the stability in the market comes into play. The new tariffs, as I mentioned, were also hitting some unusual countries, to say the least, like Reunion Island, Norfolk Island, the Falklands, Svalbard, and Jan Mayen. Most of us, myself included, would have a lot of trouble finding those places on the map, let alone figuring out their major exports, including a completely uninhabited island, the Heard and McDonald Islands, which are uninhabited. So strange list of tariffs. And just hours after the unveiling of these tariffs on Liberation Day, the Senate voted 51-48 to reverse the tariffs on Canada. 4 Republican senators broke ranks to vote with every Democrat in what was the first effort by Congress to push back on these protectionist plans. Senator Mitch McConnell saying tariffs are a terrible mistake. They are a tax. They have historically been bad for our economy. Tariffs drive up the cost of goods and services. They are a tax on everyday working Americans. He was also joined by Rand Paul, from Maine, Senator Susan Collins, and from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski, who said, I'm certain we can find a better way to mutually secure our borders and address fentanyl trafficking than by starting a trade war. Now, even though the Senate passed this, it's unlikely to succeed in the House, but they argue economic pain is right around the corner with these tariffs. Senator Tim Kaine, the Democrat from Virginia, said, this chaos doesn't help the economy. This did not need 60 votes in the U.S. Senate to pass because there's a special process set up for Congress to repeal a national emergency declared by a president, which cannot be filibustered in the Senate. And even if this does clear the House and make its way to the White House, President Trump is likely to veto this. The most interesting part of this to me is that the House left. I mean, the clock is ticking. I've been joking about this with me. My clock is ticking to find a job, and you can look at my LinkedIn profile if you want. If you know of anybody looking for extensive communications marketing experience, I would appreciate passing my name along. The clock is ticking on passing the president's agenda, important issues, and the House decided to leave for I think 5 days. We've got Doge cracking down on government workers not showing up to the office. Maybe look at the House of Representatives as well. In the Senate, which is still in session and working, which may or may not be a good thing, to be perfectly honest. The plans of their revised budget were rolled out for next year, which they hope to push through the Senate by the weekend. John Barrasso of Wyoming said our resolution will make President Trump's tax cuts permanent. We will kickstart the American economy. And this really is crucial. This, especially now after the tariff announcement, needs to be priority one of the Republican Congress, is to make permanent, at least extend the Trump tax cuts, which save the American consumer, American taxpayer, on average about $1,500 a year, which maybe not by increased costs from the tariffs. So here's how this is going to work in the Senate. The Republican plan uses a budget gimmick to allow for more than $5 trillion in tax cuts over 10 years, declaring that since the expiring Trump tax cuts are currently law, it doesn't really cost anything to extend them. It's about a $4 trillion price tag over 10 years. However, if the economy is jump-started, then it certainly is offset. Unfortunately, as many of us would like to see, this Republican plan in the Senate doesn't get anywhere close to a balanced budget and adds an estimated $14 trillion in new deficits over the next 10 years. The plan envisions an increase in the nation's debt from $36 trillion to $50 trillion in 2036. Defense spending goes to over $1 trillion a year starting in 2032. And I know many of you may disagree with this, but it sounds crazy, but you can't balance the budget if you increase defense and have tax cuts. And I'm all for cutting spending everywhere, including in the Defense Department. And there's a lot of waste that we haven't even investigated yet in the Pentagon. This Republican plan also increases the nation's debt limit by $5 trillion, which is more than what was allowed by the House. And some House Republicans have said they can't support that extra increase, which could be one of the many flashpoints over the first step in the Trump agenda, which has to be passed. We've got a slim majority, and the midterms will be here before you know it. If we're going to get anything done, including on spending, on the budget, on these very important Trump tax cuts, which we'll talk about in just a minute, the House and the Senate needs to get moving. There is a ridiculous vote-a-rama later this week, I would expect, as Republicans try to find common ground on the budget outline, which then unlocks the entire budget reconciliation process, which is always messy. It's the sausage you really don't want to see made, but it's got to be done. And we'll talk in just a second about the Trump tax cuts and how important they are. One ray of good news, quickly, before my first guest joins me, is it appears that Hooters will be saved. We mentioned this a few weeks ago, but the Hooters chain filing for bankruptcy, they will be saved as it now appears. A group of franchisees will be purchasing the company from the parent company. So once again, Hooters will be in the hands of restaurateurs who should know how to run the business. And I saw the CEO of Hooters on Fox and Friends this morning talking about how they're going to refocus. They're not changing their brand. We'll still see hot girls in skimpy orange shorts and tight shirts, the brand we've all come to know and love. But they're also going to focus on making Hooters more of a family-friendly restaurant and do what they've always done, which is support the communities they're in. So sponsoring Little League baseball teams and contributing to charity, donating food to needy groups, things that will help increase the profile of Hooters in the communities they serve. I don't know if you consider Hooters to be a family friendly restaurant. I like their wings. I like their sangria of all things. It's I know but I haven't been in a long time. I don't think I've been to Hooters in, I would say, 15 years. I think we did a broadcast from March Madness at the Hooters on Monroe Street here in Toledo when I first got here on WIOT. But I mean, even that's been like 10 years. So it's certainly been a long time. Uh, but I'm in the mood now for maybe some wings. Not exactly on my weight loss program. I think they've got like some naked wings, maybe some grilled chicken or something. I am down 100 pounds, and I shared a reel on social media talking about this weight loss journey I've been on with rixahealth.com for the last going on 15 months. And I really want to get down another 25 pounds, hopefully before the end of the summer, kind of at a plateau. But I'm really diving into the whole clean eating concept. And in fact, my friends Tim Scott, Mia Scott at rixahealth.com just launched their own podcast called Health Without the System. And the new episode this week is a must listen. Even if you don't listen to the rest of their great medical information, this episode, I mean, it's basically saying that the food pyramid is bullshit. I I don't think that's what they called the episode, but that it's a fascinating story, a true story of how big tobacco is responsible for the food pyramid that we all learned in school and how it's all wrong. And Mia also makes some great recommendations of things you can swap out if you like snacks, if you like potato chips or gummies or almond joy and Mounds bars. When you're eating a movie or whatever, she's got some great. Again, it's not health food by any means. This is not what your diet should consist of, but some options and things you should look for, ingredients you should consider if you're thinking about making a lifestyle change. And of course, the GLP-1s are really what's done it for me. They've been an absolute game changer. And you can learn more about how the semaglutides, the tirzepatides can change your life as they did for me. rixahealth.com. I'm proud to be a partner with those guys. Donovan O'Neil is State Director of Americans for Prosperity here in Ohio. He's joining me now on the Scott Sand Show podcast. Donovan, it's great to see you, my friend.
Scott, good to be with you.
So a few minutes ago, I was talking about tariffs, and one of the important parts of this, one of the jigsaw puzzle pieces, is that Congress really needs to move forward and extend the Trump tax cuts and make them permanent. It's going to be crucial for our economy over the next couple of years, especially.
Well, absolutely. And that's, the reason why back in January, our organization nationally put $20 million on the line to mobilize our grassroots communities around the country around the need to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We just put another $7 million ad buy in today as we're in the run up 12 days till tax day. If you haven't filed your taxes yet, Uncle Sam's going to come a knocking. To let folks
maybe
know,
not. If we keep firing IRS agents, maybe they won't come knocking.
Oh, thank God. That would be awesome.
Right.
But we got to raise the alarm bells. And that's what we've been doing here at Americans for Prosperity and through our grassroots army.
It's actually one of the more frustrating things over the last 3 months in the first 100 days of the Trump presidency, because the clock is ticking. I mean, we've got a limited amount of time here to get the Trump agenda passed, and this really should be one of the top 3 priorities. For people who aren't familiar with the tax cuts that we're living under now, which have been fantastic since President Trump's first term, what happens if these tax cuts are not extended?
Well, they go away. Believe it or not, if Congress fails to act, and I don't know if your listeners pay attention probably to Congress as much as the rest of us do, it fails to act a lot of the time.
Right.
But if Congress fails to act in this case, you're going to see your tax bill go up an average of $1,500 per family. That's real money, especially after 4 years of Bidenomics, where folks saw their the cost of living go up upwards of 5 figures, right? $10,000 to $15,000 per family. And so if we don't get this done, this is a hard hit not just the corporations and the wealthy, but really the working class, middle class Ohioans, Americans who pay their taxes every year. They're going to see that tax bill go up next year if things don't get approved.
Yeah, there's really a lot of money that comes out of our pocket if these tax cuts are not extended, and really they should be made permanent. They were great for our country under President Trump's first term. They were one of the saving graces during increased inflation under Joe Biden, and now it's even more money. I mean, admittedly, we may be paying more for stuff for a year or two, maybe a little bit more than that because of these tariffs, which I think will really be a negotiating tactic. I'm not sure how long they'll be in effect if President Trump's negotiating skills are as strong as many of us believe they are. But in the meantime, if these tax cuts go away, we're going to be losing more money. It's going to be more money going to the federal government to waste. But more importantly than that, it's less money for us to spend.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the arguments that are really fiscally conservative friends, and I'm one of them, make is, well, how are we going to pay down the debt? What are we going to do about the national debt and national deficit, Scott? And I'm with them, right? I'm a fellow traveler there. We got to get this under control. When I started my work in political advocacy, public policy advocacy, I think we were somewhere around probably 17, 15 trillion, maybe even a little less than that. What are we pushing now? 35 trillion. So we got to do
36
that.
trillion, possibly going to $50 trillion by 2032. I mean, that's almost real money.
We're getting pretty close to real money here, Scott. But the point is, this money isn't Washington's money. This is our money, Scott. This is the money we earn every day in our paychecks. We get paid out every 2 weeks, right? We earn in our paychecks. Washington doesn't have an entitlement to it or a claim to it. It's our money. All we want Washington to do is make sure that they don't get their hands on it and make the Trump tax cuts permanent.
And the upside is that if we do have more money to spend, the economy will thrive. If we're spending more money on services and goods, more Americans can be employed and wages will go up and the entire economy thrives. And that actually does drive revenue. These may be tax cuts now, but if we're paying less taxes, but the government's pulling in more money because the economy is on fire as it was before COVID, then fine, they can spend that money that's coming in. I wish they'd spend it a little bit better than they have been, as we've seen under Doge. But we all benefit. What's the old phrase that every boat rises in the tide, or whatever the hell that phrase is?
A rising tide lifts all
Rising tide raises all boats. So that's the one I was thinking of.
Not just in Maumee Bay, but in the economy as well, right, Scott? And yeah, that's the idea. With that money gets spent here in the state of Ohio, right? We've cut taxes every year since 2011 when Republicans took back control of the state of Ohio. We've also been able to do, as we've cut those income tax rates, Scott, Columbus's coffers have continued to grow. We've seen the government gets its share. But what's most important, right, is that the economy grows. That means more opportunity for more people. That means higher paychecks. That means a better state and a better country. And we're talking about this on the federal level. So these tax cuts work. They have a positive impact. And they impact, most importantly, the working middle class Ohioans and Americans who need it the most.
And Americans for Prosperity is putting a lot of money into the campaign to make sure that all of us understand the importance of extending, making permanent the Trump tax cuts, and hopefully getting the message to our representatives as well to get off their ass and get this done, come back and do the job that we elect you to do in Washington, D.C. And you've got an ad buy supporting that on media in the state and around the country as well.
Yeah, that ad buy that's going on right now is really focused on raising that awareness when people are thinking about it the most. As they're going to H&R Block or their local CPA and getting their taxes filed, we want them also, while they're watching YouTube or listening to their Pandora radio on the drive over there, to hear that message and understand that if Congress fails to act, your tax bill will go up next year. This time next year, 12 months from today, it will go up if Congress fails to act to protect prosperity. And we need them to take action by going to protectprosperity.com.
We'll actually talk about this in a couple of weeks too. On tax day, on April 15th, we've got a Protect Prosperity Tax Day rally planned here in Toledo at Wildwood Metro Park in the Sycamore Shelter, 6:30 on, that's a Thursday.
Tuesday.
I was trying to do the math in my head. You may have seen the steam coming out of my ears. I thank you guys at Americans for Prosperity so much for asking me to host it, to MC the event. You've got a great lineup of speakers: Tom Winooski, Craig Riddell, Derek Marin, Bob Denzik, State Rep Josh Williams, some others that will be there to all speak about the importance of lowering our taxes.
Well, yeah, and we appreciate you joining us, Scott. We often say we put a megaphone to the voices of Ohioans who want to make a difference, and there's no better voice for Northwest Ohio than you, Scott. So thank you for joining us and being the MC. But it's a great lineup, great number of organizations. A lot of the Republican clubs are getting involved. I'm looking at the list here: Northwest Conservative Coalition, Linda Boyer, and the crew up there. These are the folks who've been keeping the Lantern of Liberty ignited for year after year after year. And so coming together on tax day, doing the old school style tax day Tea Party rally, having an awesome radio host like you emceeing it, alongside the nation's largest grassroots advocacy organization, Americans for Prosperity, we're going to make word known in Northwest Ohio on tax day, April 15th, that we're taxed enough already. We got to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. And the best way to get it done is to get Congress to act and send that one big, beautiful bill to President Trump's desk.
Are we going to be allowed to throw tea into the Maumee River?
I don't know.
Allowed? Can we have our own Tea Party revolution in the Maumee? Maybe it will offset the algae. I'm not sure.
It could be good for the water. No, I think whatever we end up doing, I think it's going to be a patriotic evening and a good time and a great way again to as a movement, right? As a conservative movement that's taxed enough already to come together, rally around some real great speakers, and get a rundown and some direction on what we need to do over the next couple of months as Congress works to get this reconciliation package over the finish line.
And I'll be talking about this and promoting it on social over the next couple of weeks. It's on tax day. Nobody likes to do their taxes, let alone talk about taxes, but this is an important issue on April 15th, 6:30 in the Sycamore Shelter at Wildwood Metro Park. I hope you'll join me and everybody from Americans for Prosperity. Donovan O'Neil is joining us now. You can find him on X at DT O'Neil or AFP Ohio and AmericansForProsperity.org. You mentioned what we're doing here in Ohio, the state budget, which is in the news this week as well. As I understand it, and you can fill in the gaps here, it reduces Governor DeWine's $61 billion two-year budget to $60 billion, big savings in state general revenue funds. And it does maintain our constitutional requirement here in Ohio for a balanced budget, but it also has a lot of changes that have been made to this budget proposal as well.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things that are really important. And it's one thing to point out for your listeners who maybe don't follow the state budget process like some of us nerds do, right? It's a long, winding road from introduction to the final budget that the governor will sign on or around June 30th. Where we're at right now,
there are just as many changes that happen in the budget process as there are at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, that's a pretty good, pretty on point, timely analogy. Yeah. What I think is important here is you actually want to look at the all funds, and so when you look at the all funds, what we're looking at is the governor introduces a $206 billion budget that runs the state for 2 years. That's a lot of money, right? It's actually a $14.5 billion increase over the current biennium that we're in. And so when the House got their hands on it, began taking a look at it and trying to make sure that we're being as fiscally steward with every penny that gets sent to Columbus, they actually came back and introduced this week their version of the budget, which actually reins in that executive spend by about $4.5 billion. So we're still spending more. But I think what's important here, and an important culture shift that we haven't seen, and I went back and did the math, for over a decade, this is the first budget proposal out of the Ohio House in a decade that has actually cut or restricted some of the spending that the executive was looking to do. And that's a good thing for us fiscal conservatives, those of us who love the Doge, who want to see government run efficiently, who voted for that back in November. The Ohio House, Republican majority there, reined in that spending by about $4.5 billion. And we still have a long way to go where the Senate can take its take a look at this, and then ultimately in the conference committee they'll settle on a final product.
There's some things I like about this, some things I don't. I like that the budget eliminates the gambling and tobacco tax increases, which can avoid a new revenue stream that could fuel unchecked spending, and certainly gambling, tobacco, vices that I don't think should be overtaxed. I also like that it obviously trims some money from Governor DeWine's proposal. $1 billion is $1 billion, man. I mean, it's still a lot of money, but $1 billion saved is $1 billion saved. some things I don't like about it. I mean, we're putting 600 million in bonds for the Browns Stadium. It's not a direct tax, but it does potentially commit future state resources that we could indirectly bear the cost despite that collateral. So there are things that concern me about this, but overall, I like that we're cutting some spending out of the budget.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and yeah, I think kind of following along that, I think we share a lot of similarity there in how we're looking at this, right? We don't want to increase new revenues or create new taxes, right? Which is what they would be doing if they enacted these taxes the governor proposed. We don't need to do it. We shouldn't do it. And the House rightly put those in the trash bin. And I don't think we're going to see them come back, but we'll keep advocating on that front. The other thing, when you look at programs like the bonding deal there. Again, not an ideal thing. As a matter of principle, we are as an organization are opposed to those kinds of programs. It just never seems to pan out the way that folks paint it that it will. But again, I think you look at those things, and now you look at the ability that we have where we're reining in some of the spending. We also are giving some relief in property taxes that I think is really key to zero in on, as well as expanding school choice for folks in the non-chartered, non-public space. On the whole, I think we've got a budget product that gives conservatives some really solid wins, even as we're only still in the first half of the budget process.
So you mentioned school choice. I believe, as I understand this budget, it adds about 225 million more in state funds for education, and it adjusts the funding formula a little bit. How should there be concerns about what happens to Ohio's educational system if the federal Department of Education goes away? And I certainly think that school choice needs to play a bigger role for everybody, for every family in our state.
There's only 51 places in the country, Scott, where you can say that you're cutting spending when you're actually increasing spending. That's every
Right.
state capital in Washington, D.C. And so the reality is, Scott, they have increasing spending. I believe it's $250 million over what the executive asked for on foundation funding. That's the money that goes to the 609 or so public school districts here in the state of Ohio. So the state budget increases funding for education while also protecting and retaining the school choice programs we expanded last budget, the Ed Choice scholarships that allow families to take their child to any school that meets that child or family's needs, values, beliefs, or opportunity. And then even still expands it to this group that has doesn't have it right now, the non-charter, non-public, by creating an education savings account of sorts for them. That's about 75% of what the Ed Choice students would get. So this is a budget that increases funding for education, despite what the mainstream or traditional news media would try to paint, or what our friends in the teachers unions are trying to rail about. This increases funding for education, and is on that front, we're thinking about funding families, maximizing flexibility, and expanding choice. This budget takes some good steps in the right direction there.
Where does this budget fit in with the Buckeye Blueprint?
Yeah, well, our two main areas of our Buckeye Blueprint are economic freedom and education opportunity. And so whether we're talking about making sure that the House, the legislative branch of the government, is holding the executive in check, we're seeing that happen by that reduction of $4.5 billion in spending that the governor has asked for in his final budget. So we're accomplishing that. The property tax piece is phenomenal in that if you've got a school district that's sitting on a large cash fund balance and it's just sitting there, they're not spending that money, they're just hoarding it, they're going to return that money back to the taxpayers. In certain circumstances, that's really important, especially for the folks feeling pain on property taxes. And then the other main priority for ours in the Buckeye Blueprint is education opportunity. And as we just talked about, we're funding families, we're expanding choice. Those are the things that we're fighting for every day here at the State House, that our activists and advocates join with us to lock shields and join us in, from Lucas County all the way over to Mahoning down to Hamilton County and Cincinnati.
Well, we'll talk more about the Buckeye Blueprint, I'm sure, at the Tax Day rally. But where can people find the blueprint and see what it's all about?
Yeah, you can go to BuckeyeBlueprint.com. BuckeyeBlueprint.com, that's our site for a bolder, better Buckeye State.
DT O'Neil on X, or AFP Ohio on X, at AmericansForProsperity.org. Again, I hope you'll join us at the Sycamore Shelter, Wildwood Metro Park, on Tuesday, April 15th, Tax Day, 6:30. Great lineup of speakers. We'll talk about all of this, and we'll have some fun. It'll be a great night to get outside. I think there's going to be some food and refreshments and games, some cornhole, and you'll see how bad I toss the beanbag around.
That's right. We always, if you join us, there's always food with AFP, and there's always a good time. So can't wait to see you and have a great time on tax day. We go first time for many folks that you're having a good time on tax day. We're going to have it April 15th there in Toledo.
I'm going to try to get Derek Marin and Josh Williams on with me to talk about some of these things more next week and get you on again before the tax day rally. Maybe I can even record an episode on location out there that afternoon.
Oh, that'd be great, Scott. Just let me know. Happy to do it.
All right. Talk to you soon, Donovan. Thanks, man.
Have a good one.
All right. So we got the wonky stuff out of the way, which I do enjoy talking about, but let's have some fun in this episode of the show as well. Quick shout out and thanks to one of my partners here on the Scott Sand Show, Alp Nicotine Pouches. It's Tucker Carlson's company. I didn't think I would ever use a nicotine pouch, but I really enjoy these if I can hold it correctly on camera. It's a better time. If you've used other nicotine pouches, these certainly have longer lasting flavor. They're moisture pouches. And use my link in the comments. Get a 10% discount when you try Alp Nicotine Pouches. This product does contain nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Must be 21 or over to enjoy Alp Nicotine Pouches. I've got the chilled mint right now, which I think is probably one of my favorite flavors. And again, use the link below if you want to get those. Yvette from Bougie Sports is joining me now, bougiesports.net, and you can find her on all the socials as well. Hello, Yvette. It's great. I've become a fan of your podcast, and I love your social media stuff.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I love hearing that. It makes all this hard work seem worthwhile, right?
Yeah, and you're obviously a huge Cleveland sports fan.
Yes.
Why? I mean, I've only lived in the Midwest a couple of decades.
Yeah.
But why? How? I don't understand the fandom of the Browns. I've tried. Look, I grew up a Saints fan because I'm from the coast, so we didn't have a lot of NFL teams. I grew up I'm sorry, what did I say? I grew up a Saints fan. Lived in Indianapolis for about 10 years and got to know a lot of the players and cheerleaders. Became a Colts fan, and now they've gone to crap. So I've kind of abandoned the Colts. I watched what's the HBO show? Hard Knocks. I watched Hard Knocks the season the Browns were on there, and I hated Baker Mayfield until watching Hard Knocks, and I became a Baker Mayfield fan, and I tried to cheer for the Browns, and as every Browns fan feels, I was let down once again. So I'm really without a team. I hopped on the Lions bandwagon last year. How do Browns fans stay Browns fans? It's so disappointing season after season.
It's the definition of insanity,
Right.
The same thing. And, I think it's just kind of built into your character. For me, it's not like they've ever won, because I just became a huge Browns fan after they came back from Baltimore. So I don't really remember like the cardiac kid days and stuff where they had that moment of, Browns greatness. So
Right.
for me, the best ride that I really seen was like our little Baker Mayfield era. I live in Ohio. Like that's just, I either got to be a Browns fan or a Steelers fan where I'm from. And I ain't going to be a Steelers fan. That's for sure.
No, every Browns fan I know absolutely despises the Steelers, which makes for fun on Sundays out at Third Street Cigar where I watch the games. It could get a little heated from time to time. I mean, really, the Browns had a tremendous opportunity with Baker Mayfield, and we've seen how successful he's been now with the Bucs. And then the whole Deshaun Watson move, which even the Haslams are now admitting they screwed that up.
I know, how about that? That's kind of crazy, right? Which is funny because, I said this a couple years, last year, that if only Jimmy Haslam would just admit that he messed up, and people were like, he would never do that. A billionaire is not going to admit a mistake.
I'm going to admit he's wrong. Are you kidding me?
Yes, but here we are, and at this point, I don't know what else he had to do, but just to admit it. Yeah, it's been nuts. So I'm looking forward to this new season and this new NFL draft when we finally get some of these trade picks back that we've lost for the last couple of years with this Deshaun Watson deal.
It's funny because if you watch the movie Draft Day, Sonny traded away the Browns' future. But
Yeah.
unlike the movie, he got it back before the end of the draft day. The Haslams weren't successful in being able to, and instead we're stuck with that stupid pay that we have to give Deshaun Watson, all of the legal mess that comes along with him, and really ties the Browns' hands being able to do anything with personnel for the next couple of years.
Because the Haslams didn't pick the guy who everybody would go to their birthday party. He picked the guy that nobody would go to their birthday party. They should have learned that in draft day.
Yeah, pick the guy to go to the strip club with. I think instead
exactly.
is who they picked. So what do they do at quarterback now? I mean, there's all sorts of names have been thrown around the last couple of weeks, and I know watching your social media, you're following the draft lineup lead up pretty closely, and you've got some thoughts on what they should do.
Absolutely. I think that the quarterback position is just like one of those areas that, of course, we need. We don't have a franchise quarterback. And a lot of Browns fans think that we have to draft a quarterback because we have the second pick in the draft. There's two quarterbacks now that the two that people talk about the most, which is Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward, I think would be the better option, but I don't think he's really on the table for the Browns unless they do try to move up in the draft, which I don't really see happening. So that leaves us with Shedeur Sanders, who I feel like is mid quarterback and wouldn't even be in the first round at all if this was last year's quarterback class. I know next year quarterback class, it looks a lot different. If Archie Manning does put himself in, that's somebody that everybody thinks, that would be great. But we also don't know where we're going to be at in the next draft. I'm sitting right
near
now.
the bottom. Near the bottom.
Yeah. I'm okay with. Have you heard the Kirk Cousins rumors in Cleveland?
Yes, I've seen that on your social. We've heard about that too, and I think it was I think I saw an X tweet from you talking about the circus that would come to town if it was Shedeur Sanders. Do you really want Shedeur and Deshaun Watson on the same team?
No.
He may look, if you're going to get somebody from Colorado, Travis Hunter might be the best player in the draft. You don't, if you're the Browns, you don't have to draft a quarterback every year. There's no rule, there's no law that says you got to draft a quarterback every time and kill somebody else's career. You don't have to do that. Maybe build the rest of the team and find the right quarterback when it becomes available.
Exactly. Kind of like what the Philadelphia Eagles have done. That's what I said. Maybe if they don't go on this side of Travis Hunter, maybe Abdul Carter, and build up that defensive side with Myles Garrett. And then just win defensively. It's kind of scary to think we might pass up the opportunity of having one of those type of caliber players for another shot in the dark or shoot and miss, or swing and miss, like
right.
Jimmy likes to say on Shedeur Sanders. I just don't think he's that good. I really don't. I mean, and I'm not the kind of person I don't watch a college film. Oh, please. I'm not like that. But I do watch a lot of TV, and I watch and I listen and I read, and I'm not blind. You know what I mean? I know what the Browns need. I just don't think he's that good.
So many draft picks. I mean, are misses. You're really rolling the dice every year during the draft anyway. You don't have to keep rolling the dice with quarterback after quarterback. Find the right one that's going to fit the rest of the team. You got to build the offensive line. You got to have some receivers for them. You've got to have a good running game, and as you said, most importantly, you got to have a good defense.
Yeah. And then you get Travis Hunter, then you get 2-for-1 special right there.
That's
on both
true.
sides of the ball. And people are always like, oh, well, I don't see him playing in the corner for the Browns, because we do have Denzel Ward. But if we know anything, injuries are so common in the NFL. Don't act like we have anything. Nobody's guaranteed a certain position skilled player. So if you have somebody that can just jump right in there and be like an elite caliber on both sides, I've watched him play basketball. He looks like he can play in the NBA. I think he's just like one of those freaks of nature, that's just going to be good at everything.
Follow Yvette on all the social platforms at Bougie Sports. Are Browns fans excited about a new stadium?
I think that's like another subject that's pretty much 50-50. Browns fans, we don't agree on anything, and that's something else. A lot of people like the tradition of the snow and keeping the stadium in Cleveland, and then I'm okay with the Bougie. I'm okay with the Bougie Dome. because I do
Wow.
not like to freeze watching football. I'm so okay with the dome. And I'm not from Cleveland. I'm from Youngstown. So I don't have that, you know, closeness to the city so much. You know what I mean? Because I'm always traveling to see the Browns. I live about an hour away from Cleveland.
Yeah, and
So,
fans can travel, and I certainly think it's a more enjoyable experience. But a lot of purists love the home field advantage that the Browns should get from playing outside, although it's not really made much of a difference in the last few years. But there is a charm. I mean, you talk to Packers fans; they love going to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. So there's a certain charm to that. You start moving all these teams indoors, and it loses some of that.
right. I get both sides. You know, I don't think we have a choice now. I think the dome is coming, right?
Yeah, it's a done deal. And we were talking about the budget a few minutes ago. It's and we the taxpayers are going to wind up paying for it through bond measures, which is a whole other topic. A lot of changes coming to the NFL this season too. There are a lot of rule changes discussed over the last couple of weeks. What are your thoughts on the tush push?
Yeah, I see that's like a big point of contention. And I feel like I don't really, maybe because it doesn't really relate too much to Cleveland. You know, we don't really use
Right.
that move that much. I'm okay with it going. Whatever.
Yeah, it's a play. Could it risk injury? Sure, but everything that you're doing on the field is actually an injury risk too. So getting rid of that one play just because it keeps beating you is probably not a good reason.
True. Yes.
Yeah. Are you just a football girl?
Oh, I like all sports. I like golf. I like baseball. I like basketball. But I think I'm mostly my passion runs. Like I'll miss some Guardians games. There's a lot more too. But I will never miss a Cleveland Browns game. My dog is about to go nuts because the mailman's coming. Wait for it. Where
Where,
is
where,
he?
where's your dog? Or is the dog going to make a cameo? My
Yeah.
my producer Tiger the cat may make a cameo at some point too.
Oh,
Tiger
really?
gets
Oh, that actually went
Tiger.
very smoothly. My
Yeah,
dog.
Tiger gets tired of me talking, so he'll make an appearance when he's done with the show. Tell me about Bougie Sports. Tell me about your podcast. And I know you've got a good guest coming up.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Yes, I have Bougie Sports on YouTube. I do podcasts where I have interviews like today, and then I also do a lot by myself, which I didn't know how. It's just kind of evolved that way. And I do have Boom Boom Mancini coming next week. I also have the squad pod that I started with other fans and trying to get more women involved in podcasting and things like that. So together we've all been kind of collaborating and moving. Oh, now
He's ready to go.
yes.
It's great to see more women involved in sports and sports media and talking about the games.
Yeah, and I think fantasy football is really my thing.
So I'm always horrible at fantasy sports.
You do or don't? Sorry.
I do. Yeah, I do. I haven't the last couple of years, but I'm always bad. I always forget to follow the stats.
Yeah.
Your dog does not like the mailman.
I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Oh my gosh. It was like the after the fact. Come here. Okay, we're good now.
We'll get treats in a minute.
Yes.
How often do you put your podcast out, and where can people subscribe?
Thank you. We are putting things out once a week. You can subscribe at Bougie Sports. And you can also check out my website at bougiesports.net. There you can see all the podcasts and everything that we do.
Yvette, it's great to have you on. I thank you for your time.
And thank you so much. Have a good day. Go Browns.
I'm going to leave you with one more thing. A huge asteroid that was briefly feared to strike Earth now has nearly a 4% chance of smashing into the moon. This is according to new data from the James Webb Space Telescope. Now, this asteroid was initially thought to be capable of leveling a city on Earth. It set a new record in February for having the highest chance of hitting Earth at 3.1%. And that sent the Earth's planetary defense community into action. This asteroid is 2024 YR4. Which initially was believed to strike Earth a couple of years ago, but it now has greater odds of hitting the moon, which could be devastating for Earth as well, because the moon affects our tides and other aspects of life on our planet. The chance of striking the moon is now at 3.8%, according to NASA. And they're also using the Webb telescope to show that the asteroid is bigger than previous projections at about 131 to 295 feet, which is larger than initially believed and could cause severe damage, perhaps even altering the rotation and revolution of the moon around the Earth. This is perhaps the most interesting part of the story. If the asteroid ever, if any asteroid really, ever has a 1% chance of hitting Earth, then the defense apparatus is activated to fend off an incoming asteroid, which we've never really had to do before. Nuclear weapons, lasers have all been considered to deflect an asteroid. The DART mission in 2022 was the only test that's ever been done, and it did successfully alter an asteroid's trajectory by smashing a spacecraft into it. We need to hope that we don't have to rely upon that. But that, if you're looking at the stock market, might be the glimmer of good news today, and that's sad. We'll wrap things up on the podcast today, episode 2555, again with thanks to sponsors like Rixa Health, 4guysonaroof.com, Americans for Prosperity, my friend Josh at Farnsworth Cocktail Bar, 3rd Street Cigar, have some oysters, maybe one of their smash burgers and a cigar at 3rd Street Cigar. Thanks to Christy at the Art of Men's Grooming, Whiskey Red Saloon downstairs here at the Commodore Perry Toledo Tech Loft, and of course, Alp Nicotine Pouches. Please share the podcast with your friends and subscribe if you're not already on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and X. You can find me at Scott Sands Media. Have a great Thursday.